Welcome. So today I'd like to talk about tables, what a table is in Typst, or how to use it, how to reference them, caption them, manipulate the caption, and do some formatting. And maybe some intermediate formatting, just so that way if you need to have some control over how it looks, because right out of the box it's pretty plain, you'll have some tools for that. So with that, let me just put in my agenda, and I'll just copy and paste that over here. Okay, so essentially we're going to cover everything I said, and this content is all available. All of this is lying in the documentation on Typst, and maybe this video is just helps you learn a little bit better. So that's the aim here, is to get you started as quick as possible. So let's say you want to create a table. So the easiest thing to do is use the table command and tell it how many columns you have. So columns, and we can say we have, let's just say 3. And then you put your content in these things called cells. So cells are anything inside a bracket, and you can have a whole bunch of these. We'll probably be doing a lot of this in this video. And so I'm going to just type some indexes so you can see how this essentially fills out. And let me just copy and paste. Oops. And adjust the rows so you can see. And I'll add one more row. And then I'll walk you through what I just did. Okay, so now we've got 12 cells, each with a row and column call out. Okay, so I said that I had 3 columns. This is the content, the data in. These are the data in the table, and I can do it all on one line. See, it's all on one line, or I could make it on 4 separate lines, which is nice because then what I see in code is very similar to what I have on the page. And so, like, this is, straight out of the box. This is what you get from Typst. So there's more. We'll get to that in a second. But if I just wanted to create a table very quickly, this is what I would do. Right? I would just throw the content in there. And just hack away. So now the question is, well, what can I put in a table? Does it all have to be text? And the answer is no. You can put in numbers and images and all sorts of stuff. Anything that sits inside of one of these cells, anything will be displayed as if it was normal text. So that means I can make it a math. I can make it math, right? I could put like sigma, gamma, delta, stuff like that, right? Or I can put images in here. But for now, let's just stay away from images and stay focused on the tables. The other thing is it's automatically formatting. So if I make this 4 columns, it will automatically reshape everything, your content, to display it in that way. So that's very powerful, and then it does it just so quick. But look how everything is left aligned. Okay, so we may want to manipulate some of how this exists. Also, there's no caption and no way to reference these tables, which could be problematic. So with that, let's talk about captioning. So if I want to caption a table, here's the way not to do it. So the way not to do it. I can do align, center, and inside a center block of code, I can put a table. Tell it has columns. Let's just paste this one from above just for the sake of speed. Okay, and now it's centered on the page, and then I can put in it table 1, this amazing table, right? and then in my code, see table 1, right? So if I was in a rush, I might do this. Probably not, but this is a workable way, but this is the way not to do things. So now let's talk about the way to do it. Okay, so the way not to do it. So now the way to caption and reference tables. Now it looks like what I'm about to show you looks like it might be more work, but it won't be, because in the editorial process, there's a couple things that could go wrong. So if I'm writing a paper and I'm doing peer review, or I've got an advisor or a teacher and they're giving me feedback and they want a table to appear in a different order, or they want the content to change in some way, you need to have that flexibility so that way when you reference a table, that reference in your text matches the table. The other is this spacing here is pretty large. You could do this thing, you could say v minus 1 em or like 0.8, and now you've got, like, you can make it nice and tight. You could do that, but it'd be nice if this was all sort of automated in a way where you don't make these mistakes and have all these different ways of presentation. So for that, we will use a figures environment. And so the way to do that is use a figure. We can say have a caption, and in the caption I'm going to say things like the right way to generate a table, right? And then in here I'm going to put the table content. So I'm just going to take this table. Now I'm in a code environment, so I don't need the hash symbol now. So I've got a table, I've got the caption, I'm missing a parenthesis for the table here. So I like to do this so I can keep track of my parentheses. All right, and so Typst knows that I used a table in here, and it automatically called this a table, and it already provided the caption as it sits here, right? So that's very, very nice that it took care of that. However, okay, we need to add a label. So if I want to reference this, this is table 1 or tab 1. So this is at tab 1. So now I know whenever I type at tab 1, because that's what I'm calling this table, it will always put that in text here. So if I have another table, let's say now my teacher or editor or whatever is telling me I need a new table, we'll call this one table begin, and we'll call this one table end. So I want to do table begin, and then at table, I call it tab, sorry, tab end. Sorry. This is at tab begin, and this is at tab end. Okay, so this is table 1 and table 2, but then if I swap the order for some reason, I can do that. And so now it automatically tracks in the text where it was I was referencing whichever table. This is a good way of doing it. The only issue now is the captions on the bottom. Okay, so we need a way to push the caption to the top. And so for that, so how do I put the caption on the top of tables? And the answer is with a show rule. Now, a show rule is going to manipulate everything beneath it in the document. So if you do it at the very top, everything underneath it will do it. So for now, I'm just going to do it here. In general, when I would do this, I'd put the show rule at the top of my very, very top of my document. I put it all the way up here at the very top. And so the reason I'm not doing that right now is to show you that going forward, it will do it. So for now, I'm just going to do it here. So we do a show. And now the show rule will manipulate things. So what do we want to manipulate? We want to manipulate the figure. And we need to filter it to make sure that it's a table. Okay. So when I did this figure, what's hidden here, now that there's a table thing in there, this is actually when it does this, it assigns figure the kind of table. So it knows that that's the kind. Now I could call this an apple, and you'll see what happens in a second here. So where the kind is a table, then what I want to do is set the figure caption to be positioned top. Okay. And that one rule going forward will force the captions on top. Okay, so I'm going to take this figure. Oh, it doesn't know what apple is. We'll call it thing. I don't know. Fine, leave it table. Okay, so it's a table. So it doesn't like begin. Okay, we'll call this 3. Okay, so now all figures going forward from this show rule will have the caption on top automatically. So you can see the captions were on the bottom before. Now they're on the top going forward. If I do another one of these things, right, I can do it. It doesn't matter. As I go forward, so it's got 4 columns. It's table 4. It's automatically placing the captions on top. So that essentially tells you how to generate a table, how to caption it, how to reference it. So now I can reference tab 3 and tab 4, for lack of a better name, right? You generally don't want to do 3 and 4. You want something more descriptive. So like I could say, this is like a table of data, and then this is a table of, I don't know, items. And so then I could say referencing tab data and tab items. That way, you're not tracking numbers when you do this, you're tracking the content, right? That's generally a better practice. Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of how to generate a table, how to place it and caption and reference it, the next part I want to talk about is how to format a table. So, this is great and all, but the tables are really boring. They are all stroked with 1-point font or 1-point width lines, and it's not great. It's probably not the easiest way to demonstrate the power of Typst. Now, when I started using Typst, this was the only thing that was supported. But currently, there's some tools available. So I want to highlight what those are and show you some examples. So let's do. I've got an example here. I'm going to just grab it and bring it on over, and then I'll walk through. We'll walk through it line by line. Okay, so this is an example. Now look, this is significantly different in appearance than this. And so let's walk through this figure this table that I've created. So the first thing I've done is in the table, I had 3 columns. Okay, we've been doing that over and over now. But now I'm telling it the stroke width of every line is going to be 0.1 point. But why do I have this thick line? Well, I'll get to that in 1 second. So let's say I was just going to code this up. Let's just do it. So figure, caption, amazing things. Put it in brackets so that way, square brackets. Then we're going to do a table. Okay, we're going to do columns. We'll do 3, and we'll do a stroke of 0.1 point. Okay, so now I'm going to put my content in here. So let's just do some quick content because I'm Just trying to show you how to format. Okay, so I've got some content and I made the stroke point 1. So now I want to make the title bold, and I want to make, I want to just show that I can put that horizontal line going across. So to bold the titles, headers, I can do it this way, right? So this is header 3. This is probably better if I just do it so you can see. Okay, so I've got the headers and I've got some content in here, and then now what I want to do is add a line. So what do? I go table, H line, that's a horizontal line, start, 0, right? So let's think about this. So index wise, the very left is 0, then this one's going to be 1, then this column will be 2, and then this one will be 3. So I can start it here and I can end it. Let's say I just only want the first one, 0 to 1. Will give me, I need to make a stroke 1 point, something, not too thick right now. So I've told it to start at 0 and end at 1. If I do 2 or 3, if I do 3, it'll go all the way across. So why in this example did I use 4? Well, here's the deal. Okay, if I change the columns, because I don't know why, to 4, I'm covered. Right, so whatever this number is, it will saturate the number, so that way, if I do 5, watch what happens. It won't go all the way across. You see, it'll stop at 4. So if you just pick a big number, it will basically just stroke the whole thing across. If you were to manipulate things later, which is very rare, you'd be covered. So there's nothing wrong with going with a larger number, but for now, you could just pick whatever it is. The other thing is maybe you have a vertical line. Okay, so another example of this would be if I had not only a header, but then I have all these indexes on the left that I want to separate from things. So, so this is, now we want to talk about how to format a vertical line and horizontal line. Okay, so to do that, I have another example I worked out. I'm going to just paste that here. Okay, this is a lot more complicated, but we're going to walk through this. But I've got a vertical line, and I did a gradient, because why not? And I did another line here. And look, in this table, all I did was highlight the content, but in this one, you see I filled the cell. So we'll walk through that. Also, I didn't talk about how to combine, but I'll do that here in this example. So the first thing I need to do is import, in the table function, I need to import cell and header. Now, I could just do table.cell and table.header. I could make use of those things. But if I do it this way, it's a little bit easier, or having access to these commands. So let's talk a little bit about that. The other is I created a show rule. So remember how I was saying a show rule, everything following it follows it. So I create this show rule, and this show rule says table cell where y is 0. Okay, so that's the top row. Set the weight to bold. Okay, and so I could do that. I could also say, so this is 700. I can make it really bold, 800. Big old giant numbers. Well, I think that's as far as it gets, actually. Or I can go real light, 100, 200. I don't think we get a transition. Yeah, so there's a different, I don't think you get a transition. Anyways, you can change the weight of the font that way. Oh, look, extra bold. Let's do extra bold. Okay, no change. Great. So you can essentially, make a rule. The text, I can say, you know, paint blue. Maybe it's fill. Fill blue. So now it's not only bold, but it's going to be blue on the header, right? So you're basically telling it how you want the text to be formatted on the top line. So I made this thing we use this thing called header, color, number, thought, right? So I've got this header, and that's the very top line. And then I put in an H line, which we saw in the previous example. And so now I have red. Okay, so let's look at that. So I've got a red content. I said text red, and that's going to manipulate this first cell. Okay, so maybe we just need to recreate some of this. Figure, caption things. Okay, table, columns, 3, and we're going to do header 1, header 2, and header 3. Okay. Now remember, that show rule only applied to the first one. So if I do content 1, content 2, it's not going to format it blue, right? It only works on the very first row. So let's just add some more of these cells just real quick so I have some examples. Okay, and we'll just call this 2, 3, 4, and we'll call it comma 1. Just so that way you can see I've got some content here. This is 1, 2. This is 2, 2. And this is 1, 3. And this is 2, 3. This is 3, 3. And this is 4, 3. There you go. Just a little mind game with row column numbers. Okay. All right, so now I want to create this H line. So that's the first thing I can do. I go table.hline, and I call it start 0, end 3, stroke 1 point. Let me make stroke none, so that way you can see. So I made the default stroke of the table none, and I made an H line of 1 point. So that takes care of that. So now, how did I get the vertical line? Well, in here, I'm going to do this thing, right? So I'm going to call it table.vline, okay? And that V line, if I put nothing, it just goes straight down, but I don't necessarily want that. Maybe I only want it to start there. So I can say start 1, right? And now going forward, right, it will do that. I can tell it where to end. I say get rid of the end here, right? And this will go from top down. Now, I might want to change the stroke. 2 point. So now it's thick. So there you go. So now you can have, like, separating these out. You can essentially place them, choose wherever you would want that V line. So if I don't want it here, I want it on the next cell, I have to place it here. So I have content 1, 2, and then I put a V line, and boom, now it's going to be there all the way down. So it just depends on where you place that. You just have to put it in your code. The other thing that I didn't go into is how you combine two cells together. So with that, you can do this thing. So instead of doing these two contents, we can do table.cell call span. So that means I'm going to span how many columns? 2 columns, and the content is going to be here. Okay, so that's really nice, because if I have, for some reason, I have to, a subheading or whatever, I'm able to do that by combining some of these cells together, right? So that's, I don't have to do it here. I can do it at the top, right? But the idea is, you can do that. You can also do a row span. So now let's do some more content. Let's fill in some of these content blocks. Call this one A, B, C, D, and E. All right, so I've said that this now is going to fill not only 2 columns, but also 3 rows. But look, it's center aligned and it's top aligned. That's a problem, right? So you can say align, and you can say horizon, and you can do right. I don't know, right? You could do whatever you want. Horizon, center. So that'll be center aligned. So let me get rid of the, oops, call it. Okay, so now I've made it so that way that content fills 3 rows and 2 columns. If I make the stroke 0.1, you'll see how you'll kind of see how all that lays out. That's kind of nice just to see that, but you could turn it off if you wanted to. Okay, so that's how you essentially do headers, horizontal lines, vertical lines, and cells. The last thing I wanted to do, and filling. I'm sorry, I forgot to talk about filling. To fill, you use a cell fill command. So I had col span, row span, and align, but maybe this very last bottom right one, you want to highlight that. So with that, you do table.cell, and then you can do fill, and then we can make it red, right? Now, remember how I imported cell and header? I don't need to do this. I can just do cell. I can just say cell, but you'd have to import cell and header into as commands. So if you don't normally want to do this, that's okay. You can get rid of that, but then see now it's going to say, I don't know what cell is. So you're going to have to say table dot. So either way, however you want to proceed, you can. And then this example has, how to do gradients and colors on some of this. There's some examples there. It doesn't know what cell is. No, maybe here. All right, so there's some examples there on how to do some of that. The last thing I want to do is creating like a table format. So let's say you want to format all of your tables exactly the same and that you have a special look that you want. This would exist if I had, so we'll call this like table formatting rules. So this would be like if I'm typing a report and I need all my tables to look a certain way. They need to be filled a certain way, have a header a certain way, right? Every single one needs to be this way. And that's generally true in journal papers or conference papers, that you want to have the same look to meet some sort of standard. So the way to do that is to create what's called a set rule for a table. So I have one that I really like to use commonly, and this is the one. So I'm just going to paste it here. And then so the set rule is going to say all the tables following this. So if I do this at the very top of my code, right, the very, very, very top, it will manipulate all the tables beneath it. This is great because I don't want to go back and redo everything, right, that we had. But let's grab one of these tables in the beginning because they looked really plain Jane. And I want to make sure that they're formatted the way that, the way that I like. So let's go all the way up here. We'll do this one here. We'll do this one, table end. And I'll walk through this example. And it doesn't like the caption, so end two. Okay. And BamDone seems misspelled, but I chose it that way. Okay, so I generally don't do it this way because of the blue. So let me get rid of that blue from above, or I'll redefine it. How about I do that? Where's that blue? we go. Set table, boom, boom, boom. There we go. We'll put it in here. So, I don't normally have the blue. Okay. So when I do a table, what I generally will do is I bold the top, the headers. So let's just call this header 1. I'll call it header 2. And I'll call this header 3. And then I want to create a table H-line. Start 0, comma. Okay. If I don't use start, then it's just going to put an H-line. Great. Stroke 2 point. This is generally what I like when I'm typing a table and I have no guide that's telling me what I want to do. I'm just going to keep doing the same format. I generally use this. Now each row alternates in color and I don't have hard strokes. I just have these fills for each of the rows. And so to do that, I'm going to create a fill rule. Okay, so the fill rule pulls the X and Y position, and then if it's an even, then so if the even is false, so that means for an odd row, then I'm going to make it gray and I'll transparentize it 80%. Right? I could do blue, right? I could do that. Maybe you like that, or is olive a color? Why not, right? So you can do that. And then I inset each one of the cells by X or Y amounts. So that way it's sort of like some padding. And the gutters are pretty close, they have to be 0. So if they aren't 0, you're going to have these big gaps. So let's do one, for example. If I change the column gutter to be 1 EM, I'm going to get these really big gaps between them. Right, or my row gutter 1 EM, I'm going to get these extra white space gaps in between them. So I don't want to do that. So instead, what I do is I inset the cells, so that way on the X, I'm going to have all this 1 EM spacing on the left. Right, I can make it 0, so now it's super tight. Right, or I can pad the left and the right. Similarly with the header. Like the top of the head and the bottom, like of each between each row, I can give a little bit more. So I could make it nice and fat. And I can give extra spacing on the top and the bottom of each cell. So whenever you find whatever you like, you can manipulate it that way. So that's nice that you have this inset and this spacing between them. And all of this does is it alternates. So as I add more content, so if I just duplicate this entire thing, it's going to alternate, filled, not filled, filled, not filled, filled, not filled. And so that way, I think it's more pleasing. It's generally the way I like to present cells, but it highlights this idea that you can use a fill rule to do different row styles. The other is that there's this gutter and stroke, so you can essentially choose how you want to display that. And so when you essentially created one of these rules, that means every table going on forward will follow that rule. So this is for everything. So I could do this thing. I could say I could say like, let's see, text. I could say like, if X or Y, where's it Y? We could do, there's probably like a rule I could create as well if I wanted to combine this extra bold thing into here. But for now, I generally don't change the color of my text. So, that was kind of like an oddball thing to do. But for now, in the code that I upload online later, I'll try to incorporate all of that in the example. So with that, okay, I think we've got a lot of tools. You have a lot more tools now than maybe you started with on how to format tables, place them, get their captions appropriately, make them referenceable, and do some formatting. If you like this video, please consider subscribing or leaving me a comment. I'd love to hear what kind of things you would like, and I can add it to my list. The list is ever growing, and so I'm slowly working through that, and I'm happy to provide these videos. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you found all of this helpful. Thanks.